So I'm First Class V here, back with another GCSS-Army helpful video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. So today, we're continuing our series on demand analysis with part 6 of our series on understanding what each column means on the ZCON1 Delta report. So I urge you, if you have not had a chance to look at the previous videos in the series, go ahead and do so. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into understanding each column on the ZCON1 Delta report. So the last two videos, understanding the columns and the headers, right? So this is building into actually doing our analysis workbook. So I think it's important we understand what the columns mean before we actually go into it. All right, so like I said, this is understanding each column in the ZCON1 Delta report. So if we look at your first column here, you got the exception, okay? So basically you'll have three different color lights. You'll have green, yellow, and red. So the green light is 12 months of consumption, which follows the typical rules. If you have a yellow triangle in a 12-month consumption, which is followed by most rules, the material is shorted by a single month of consumption. So it doesn't meet that criteria to actually do stock. Red light means you are short more than 2 months of consumption, and if it's blank, it's short 3 or more months of consumption, and the material is supposed to be deleted. So basically, your material column here is just going to be your NIN, okay, what the equipment is or what the part is. Same thing with the description. It's going to provide a text description of the material NIN, and then add, delete, retain. So here, this identifies the material to be added, deleted, or retained in your SSL. So like I said, A is add, D is delete, R is for retain. So this column here, excludes NIN, identifies the material line has been excluded for confirmation and for approval. The material line's MRP forecast requirements are calculated when the MRP batch job ZCON Bravo transaction was executed. So this is just pulling this stuff here. So currently the exclusion reasons are being utilized. So you could have two different codes here. You got alpha or delta, onboard spares, or diagnostic mandatory parts. All right. So going into the next part. So the ZPAR change reason. Okay, so this identifies the reason for the MRP type change, okay, being processed in your ZPAR. So I'm going to do a separate video on actually ZPAR and tell you what all these codes mean. All right. MTA, right, identifies material lines MRP type forecast ZCON Bravo transaction. So this tells you what it was when we executed the ZCON Bravo. MTC identifies materials line type either MRP forecasting ZCON1 or ZCON1 Delta, depending on the size of your unit. So the Bravo here, this column here, is just displays a single character if the material line has been identified as bench stock. So it should have defined a safety stock quantity, okay? So your previous MRP, like I said, is pretty self-explanatory. That's what the previous MRP type has been. The change date identifies the date the material line's MRP was last changed. This field is blank for all material lines that are being proposed as additions. So if you see a blank space here, it's usually going to indicate that it is an addition. MTS identifies the material line's MRP type for SSA, okay? So it's going off of your ZCON1 and ZCON1 Delta. Your standard price identifies material for that price for one item, okay? So the max dollar. So this identifies the max dollar spent for each material line. In additions will be added to the unit's SSL for an additional amount spent for deletions will be removed from the unit's SSL. So the calculations are based on several formulas here. So additions for ZV lines is calculated standard price times adjusted calculation reorder point, okay? Deletions, standard price times adjusted calculations. So you get the picture. As for your deletions, your retentions is going to be your standard price times your adjusted calculation reorder point. So going into the rest of the columns, UI is pretty self-explanatory. That's the basic unit of issue. So months, okay, so this identifies the number of months the material has been consumed within a 12-month period. So for example, the top one, we've consumed it 3 times in a 12-month period. All right, this identifies safety stock, identifies the material line, safety stock quantity requirements, right? Calculated stock. Then you got your reorder point, identifies material line's current reorder point. So this is your current reorder point. So your calculated reorder point quantity is here, okay? This identifies what they are proposing that you have your reorder point set at. Adjusted calculated reorder point quantities can be adjusted for material lines that are being proposed as additions, okay? So the reorder points can only be adjusted to MRP forecasting requirement, which is your ZCON1 transaction. So you have your confirm here. So this indicates one of the following: selected or deselected. It's either going to confirm or not confirm your unit's SSL, and then approved indicates what, like I said, it's going to be really a 0 and a 1 code. I'm going to show you all that, but it's just letting you know if the material has been approved for processing or has not been approved for processing. All right, so WSD, okay, identifies material lines weapon system designator. Okay, it's an alphanumeric code. I'm going to do a separate video on this. Here, WSD description, just description. MSP displays an X if the material has been identified as a maintenance significant part. Okay, so if it's a significant part, it's going to be marked with an X. So your P here displays a P if the material line has been identified as a prime material. So for example, this top one here is identified as a prime material. So there is a interchangeable part for that, but this is the prime part for that. And of course, your SC column is your supply class material. So if you want to know more about these, you can go to DAPAM 708-2 and you can look it up there. Your AAC code, pretty self-explanatory, identifies material lines acquisition advice code. Okay, like I said, refer to DAPAM 708-2 for this. Essentiality code, identifies material lines code, refer to 708-2. All right, so if you want to know more about these codes, let me know in the columns down below, but you can go to 708-2 and you can actually learn about that. So your maintenance repair code, so this identifies the maintenance repair code. Okay, like I said, 708-2. All right, so the last columns here. Okay, so your band, identify the materials lines cost band identifier. Okay, so you can have 4 different letters here. You could have Hotel, Lima, Mike, or November. Hotel will be your standard, L will be low density, M maintenance significant part, and non-essential. Okay, so your ARC code identifies materials lines accounting requirements. If you want to learn more about that, go to DAPAM 708-2. And then your MACHAT, okay, your FSC, which is pretty self-explanatory, as the first part of your material number. Forecasting is pretty easy, so if we did have stuff that was going to be forecasted, the numbers would be right here. And then of course you got your MRP area and then your plant. So that is a rundown on each column of the ZCON1 Delta report. Okay, so like I said, this is part 6 of the series. We've done all the background reports, getting all the stuff we needed, all the Excel documents. So our next series of videos is actually going to be doing the Microsoft Excel workbook, where we're actually going to conduct our demand analysis and make changes to our MRP areas. So I hope this video was helpful. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, go Ordnance.